Welcome back to the Student Hub Live. Well, we've had a fantastic morning and a brilliant session talking about time management and squeezing it all in. And our next two sessions, we're going to think about things that you might usefully do before your module starts. So the first session, we're going to focus on evaluating your skill set. And I'm joined by Ruth McFarlane. Now, Ruth has been working in education for a long time here at the Open University, and you've got some great ideas about how students can start thinking about their studies. Now, Ruth, one of the things that we've been talking about today is how excited and nervous people are about starting their studies. But also one of the things that we know about OU students is that they often come to study with the Open University, perhaps with a big gap between their studies, although we've got some 19-year-olds too. I think, how old was it, Michelle?
19 to 75.
To 75. Yay. So if you can top 75, if you've logged in recently, do let us know. But there are a whole range of students, aren't there?
I think I do know of an 80-year-old actually.
Do you?
Yes. Probably not logged in, but yes, I know of an 80-year-old registered. Yeah.
Excellent. So students are coming to us with this very diverse range of experiences. But one of the things that they often think is, right, I'm studying now, I've got to somehow be really sensible and have all the skills already. So how might students sort of approach things mentally in terms of what they're going to be learning and thinking about where they're at in terms of their own particular diverse needs?
Well, I think the first thing to say is you really don't have to be an expert straight away. When you're starting studying, there's going to be a whole range of things that you need to get used to. And I know that you've talked about time planning already this morning. And I think you've looked at that study planner, which is really useful in terms of just assessing where the little slots might be. Because certainly when I've been studying, I've found that 15 minutes over breakfast can be a really useful time to look at a forum, for example, and make a little contribution there. And that all adds up and helps to make your 15 hours a week or whatever you're trying to achieve. But also the OU provides a lot of really good resources to help people think about what they might need to do to prepare. I mean, in particular, I want to recommend Are You Ready for OU Study? It's actually a 3-hour short course, but you don't need to do the whole lot, and certainly not all in one go. You can look at the different sections of it. So the first one of those is that study planner. But I particularly want to draw attention to the assessment section on there.
So let's take a look at the slide. This is something we've been talking about quite a lot today. And this slide here shows Am I Ready to Be a Distance Learner? And this is a badged open course. And we can see here that you can create an account in OpenLearn to start doing the course. And here you've been talking about assessment. And this is one of the tabs that you can see on the course content bar down the side. So you can get an idea about what's in the course, but it's the assessment side that's shown here in the full page here. Now, assessment is something that many students fear, but is an important part of learning.
Absolutely. I think lots of us carry a kind of perhaps a difficult memory of assessment from school, and quite a natural reaction is to feel that it's criticism and to kind of be a bit defensive about that. When you're doing distance learning, what you need to remember is that you don't have that immediate face-to-face feedback that you might get, and so feedback is a really important part of the learning process. And our OU tutors are experts at giving that constructive feedback. So as a student, I think it's really worth taking some time to understand how that feedback process works, how it can be useful for you. And this section on this course, I would really recommend people spend some time looking at, because the feedback from your tutor will come in different formats, and you can have a look at all of those things before you start so that you're ready for, right, how am I going to receive that? What difference will it make to my learning journey?
Yeah, it's a really important thing, I think, mentally getting to grips with that idea, isn't it? So many students go, right, the first assignment will often be quite early. It's often in the first few weeks of study, and it might be a small task. Yeah. In particular, we've got a lot of Access and Level 1 students here today, so they might have something in week 3, say, that's writing something down, and then they can all think, oh gosh, I'm so anxious about this, when will I get it back, and how can I do it? So why do you think it's so important to get that mindset so early on sorted in your head?
Well, because I think it's very natural to have anxiety around assessment, and you've got the deadlines, and you've got the can I submit it online, and you've got so many different things to think about. So it is very deliberate to have that assessment early on so that people can get used to all of those things. But assessment will be a key feature of your whole qualification. Most modules are likely to have 5 or maybe 6 assignments. And so it's something that you sort of get into a kind of a I don't know, like a sort of a habit with.
Yeah.
And getting that feedback, you need to be able to read it in the right frame of mind, in the way that it's intended as constructive guidance. And then when you start your next assignment, reread that feedback and have a think about, well, what did they say last time and how can I build on that and how can I develop it?
Now, within that, I mean, obviously the assignments are something written, and that sort of brings to mind then thinking, okay, if we're talking about evaluating your skill set, a lot of students might worry about the quality of their academic writing. They may not have written academically ever, or certainly for a long period of time. It may be that English isn't their first language, so there can be a lot of challenges with the actual idea about things. How might students then think about what matters? I mean, because bearing in mind, as you say, you can't be perfect right at the start.
Yeah. So again, there's a lot of OU resources that can help with that, and in particular there's a sort of self-evaluation little quiz that you can do to look at, right, what are my strengths, how can I develop those things. And I particularly wanted to draw attention to one section where you can look at, here's some sample study materials, so you can have a look at the sort of levels of English that might be required. How am I finding this? Is it easy for me to understand?
So there's English for OU study, and we'll show you a slide of that just so that you can get a sense of what is included in that. So this is again something that all students can access, and it's about gaining confidence in academic English. So again, thinking about your starting point, and there are activities there about reflecting on your language and your study skills, and finding out more about what academic English actually is. Because a lot of the time people think, oh, it's using words like however and moreover and sounding all flouncy and things, and actually this website will give you a sense about the priorities there, won't it?
Absolutely, and I think it's really useful to sort of read some of the sample materials in different subject areas, because all writers will have a different style, and it may be that some writers have a style that you don't like ever so much, but that's fine. Yeah. You don't have to like every single writer, every single author, and so it's about discovering your preferences, your own learning styles, and your own writing style as well. Everybody will develop their own voice, and I think it's really important to say that there isn't a right or wrong way of doing it, that you can have some guidance and you can be steered in a particular direction, but develop your own voice as well.
That is so important, because there is a clear and an unclear way, but
yes,
not a right or a wrong way. We've got lots of questions, Ruth.
Okay.
Can we take a trip to HJ and Rochelle and see what people would like to know?
I think Dylan's just sent a fantastic question. Is there any way of knowing whether or not we're understanding the materials we're reading before our assignments?
Oh, very good question. Before the assignment.
Of understanding whether we're understanding the materials.
Yes.
Yeah, checking understanding.
Yeah. Well, I suppose the tutor group forums would be a good place to do that, wouldn't they? To sort of check, well, I've read this and I thought it meant that. Has anybody else, thought of some things around it? Certainly, I've found it's really useful to draw on your tutor group support, because I think often we might think that, oh, I'm the only one who doesn't get this, and if you're the one who's brave enough to raise that and say, I really didn't understand that, you might find that actually quite a lot of other people will come and say, I didn't really get it either. And then that's a really good opportunity when the tutor can then step in and say, okay, let's make that a focus of our discussion in the tutorial.
Absolutely. Michelle, I know you've been speaking about people talking to animals and things in the past about checking your understanding, which I find a really useful way. On Access in particular, and at Level 1, we often talk about writing in your own words, and about sort of getting something and then reconveying it in another way. What might you say then in terms of how students might take some of those ideas about checking their understanding by things around them?
I think the tutor group forum is a really good starting point to have that discussion, but please be aware that you can't put assessment material onto the tutor group forum. I think for me, I actually talk a lot to my husband, so I know way too much about what he's studying, and he knows way too much about what I'm studying. But by talking it through and out loud, even if it's just maybe recording it and then playing it back to yourself, doing your own little personal vlog and playing it back, but all of those rephrasing, restating, or even writing it down, asking yourself some review questions at the end of the materials, and all of those things will help you understand your materials better.
And when you do that, do you have your books there, or do you step away and see what you can remember?
So that's a good point too. So I have both. So there are times when I do need to refer back. If it's something particularly difficult, I might actually take a sentence out and break it down, because sometimes some of the biological concepts that I'm working with at the minute are quite complex, so I really have to take those apart. But other times I do actually quiz myself, and I will keep the book closed. So I think it depends on what you're doing and why you're doing it. You could even write a little quiz and get someone to quiz you as well.
Yeah.
So lots of ways to practice.
Brilliant, absolutely. And also, you know, that whole idea that while, you know, I think as you said before, assessment is about, you know, learning over time, and often the tasks are designed so that you'll do a little bit, get feedback, do a little bit more, and you're developing all of those skills. It's not that you have to be perfect all of a sudden at essay writing, for example.
No, definitely not. I think, in a way, I think it's probably better to say I'm really not perfect and I want to develop those skills, because your module will be structured to help you to develop those skills. And as you say, to build on each task that you do will help develop a different aspect of that.
Now, we asked people about things they want to improve, so things they might not be so good at. Let's see what people at home had to say. Academic writing, concentration, wow, how interesting, and planning. Those have come up really highly. Ignoring distractions, self-control, keeping on time, remembering, motivation, commitment to plans, organisation, preparation. I mean, there's so much there, all really, really valid, useful points that I'm sure we've both seen a lot in the past before, Ruth.
I'd like to pick up on that concentration one, Karen. I mean, I know we've talked about cake.
Oh yes, a lot.
I think people should really not try to set themselves an impossible task of I've got to concentrate for 3 hours. Break it down, do half an hour's work, go away and have a break and have a piece of cake, and then come back and do a little bit more. So it is really difficult to concentrate for a long period. And you might have set yourself 3 hours, but that doesn't mean you have to stay in one place in front of one book, you know, or in front of the screen for that whole time.
Yeah.
Break it down and go gentle on yourself.
And also remember, sometimes it's important to know where you can find something. You might not need to remember that for the rest of eternity. So sometimes I think students can think, oh, I can't remember what I've been reading about. And again, it depends whether you need to remember that if you've got an exam. And if you haven't got an exam, you might just need to know where to go back to it if you need to refer it at a later point. Things that people are good at, though, is another thing. And I think this is also really important, as well as we're often very quick to evaluate things we're not good at. Let's see what you said at home about things you are good at. Lots of organising, so this is great. Writing, planning, critical thinking, being brave, absolutely, because you're an OU student now. Oral skills, hyper-focused, working when bored, being a mum. So really, gadgets and tech, working alone, using good English, learning new skills, finding positives. Some brilliant things here coming through, all of which are skills that will help.
I like being brave as well.
Yeah.
Yes.
I love that, which is so important with assessment as well.
Yes, yeah, and it's actually sometimes it's when we get things wrong and then we learn from that.
Yeah.
We learn a lot from the mistakes that we make, and it's always okay to make mistakes.
Yes. Yes, otherwise you won't learn.
Yeah, and that's it all wrapped up with the being brave, isn't it?
Yeah, no, absolutely, absolutely. Okay, there was another slide, Ruth, that you prepared about language skills, and you were talking. I'd like to show this slide because it's a good indication of some of the resources that are there and how you can actually engage with these resources. Now, this is something that's got listening activities in it.
Yes, it's got some audio and some video content, and what I really like is that it's real students talking about how did they manage with language issues that they were encountering.
Right.
And so I think it really is worth, especially if you're feeling a bit worried about the language, it's worth having a look at some of these and seeing and hearing what do other students say about techniques that they've adopted and ways that they've managed.
Brilliant. So you can find out all that information and the links are on the website. HJ Michelle, I hear someone needs help.
Yeah, so we have Catherine, who said that she's stuck with the content and the time pressure of something that's due tomorrow and she's ready to give up. And I would say, first and foremost, you've said it, I've said it, be gentle with yourself. So the first thing to do is maybe step away for a minute, have a cup of tea, have a little walk, or maybe a dance, something. Just step away from it, come back to it, and focus on what you can do, not what you can't do. So I think that being gentle with yourself, what can you do, and say to yourself, it's okay if I only get half of it done, or it's okay if I only get 3/4 done. Do what you can, submit it, and you might be surprised. So don't give up, I would say to Catherine. Just give yourself, be gentle with yourself, press on and see what you can come up with. But take a break when you need to.
Yeah, I completely agree. It doesn't have to be absolutely perfect.
It's never going to be absolutely perfect.
Exactly,
Let's be honest.
and as we've said, actually, if you it might be that Catherine's able to learn from this experience and think about what she could do differently next time, but that doesn't mean that it's a disaster. No. It's, as you say, Michelle, it's a good idea to submit something now, if you can, and then take that away and reflect on that.
And you can also speak to the student support team and your tutor, Catherine, as well, because it may be that you can get an extension on your work. It may be they can help prioritise. You might make a tactical submission and do half of the task, etc. But as we say, it's about sort of being good enough, I think, is the important thing. And the other thing I think, that's really important to bear in mind is that we're talking about being organised and getting ahead, and we see everybody else being ahead and things, but actually I've sat there right until midnight writing, and I'm sure many of us have, when something's happened and it hasn't gone the way, and you sit there right up to the deadline, and that's okay too, and you can still talk to your tutor until that deadline. There's nothing to be embarrassed about if you are doing it at the last minute.
And I think it's important to submit something, because particularly for a final assignment, if you submit nothing, then you might not have the opportunity for a retake. But if you submit something, you might have an opportunity for a resubmission. So it's important. But talk to your tutor, find out what's right for your module.
Absolutely, because they're all weighted in different ways, and some things you'll get absolutely 0 marks, and often it's easier to get 40% than it is absolutely nothing. And certainly easier to get 40% on one than 80% on two. So understanding the weighting of your assessment for your module is also really, really important. Okay, so we've been speaking about the language skills and things as well, and also one thing that you've brought along is the career planning workbook, which I actually love because it's got so many activities in it, and I think it's a really good way of thinking about skills in a different way. So we've spoken about the writing skills and the language skills and things that students could usefully do, but skills as a learner and things that are transferable both from the workplace and into the workplace are important. What does this book do, and how can students get hold of it?
Okay, so we know that employers tell us that what they love about OU students is that wide range of skills that they develop whilst doing distance learning. All those things that we've been talking about with the time planning and the dealing with feedback and learning from mistakes and so on. And this career workbook, you can find it on our website. It's downloadable. It's a really nice book that takes you through a whole series of activities about evaluating your strengths and looking at, well, what might that mean?
Let's take a look at this
Shall I-
book. Yeah, you should.
Yeah.
And a couple of pages, because you can also get a hard copy if you'd prefer to get one of those for free.
Let me find a couple of useful things. So this section is about finding vacancies, finding job vacancies and applying for jobs. So there's some sections which are absolutely about the job market and how you might use the skills to be finding yourself a new job. And I imagine that for quite a lot of people, that's a really important part of their study. But earlier on in the book, a bit like we've just been talking about, what are my main achievements and what do they say about me? So thinking about developing your CV, there's some really good examples of CVs in here as well. Would you like me to hold that up?
Just have a look. I mean, it's a real active workbook, actually, is the point, that you can go through, do the activities, fill in a sequential order and learn about yourself.
Yeah. And as I say, some lovely examples of different types of CV that you might produce for different occasions or different job vacancies, and thinking about drawing out, if you've had a long gap in your career for different reasons, there's ways that you can describe what you've been doing in that time. You don't have to sort of fill every year with a paid role if you've been doing volunteering or if you've taken some time out for family reasons. And this book is great at taking you through all of those stages.
And the Careers Service is something you can access as an OU student right from now till 3 years after you finish studying with the Open University, and we'll be filling you in on all of the things that they can offer you at our event for Refreshers Orientation on the 4th of February. So do come to that event and find out more about what they have to offer. So that's been some brilliant advice, Ruth, in terms of the whole sort of mental headspace and sort of attitude towards studying. And you've spoken about some ways that people might think about their English skills and try and assess and see where they are and benchmark, I guess, against other students also. Any final thoughts for students?
I think I would just say reach out to the community. Sometimes it seems like being a distance learner can be quite lonely, and a lot of people will like that thing of just managing their own time and doing their own thing. But actually there's a fantastic community of OU students, and this is a good example of some of that. But there's lots of ways that you can join in and engage with the student community. And I really would encourage people to find what works for them and do that.
Oh, and everyone really is making friends in the chat at the moment and joining the Facebook group. So well done, everybody, for sharing so much and getting to know each other. I'm sure you'll find it so rewarding knowing other OU students. At 11:59 at night when you've got an assignment due, it's nice to know that someone else out there is feeling exactly the same as you are. Ruth, that's been absolutely brilliant. Thank you so much. In our next session, we'll take a look at some more resources that you can look at. But before we do that, I just want to plug again the National Student Survey, because some people will have been sent a link today about this, and it's really important for us as a university that whether positive or negative, if you are sent an invitation to participate in the survey, you can do so. It's all run by an independent company, and basically you can get the email, of which only a few people do, often towards the end of your studies. So if you get a response, please do that, and then you need to submit those by the 30th of April. And the feedback's really, really important because it shapes the way we do things as a university. Things like this event in particular have been coming out of some of the student feedback about how important it is to connect with other students and have some opportunity to meet up from them. They're also made publicly available through Unistats to help prospective students choose their courses. So again, positive or negative, if you're invited to participate, please do. It's really, really important to us. Okay, our next session is going to look at some of the resources for your studies, but before that we're going to have a quick break. We're going to show you another place on campus, so we're going to be looking at an area in the library actually. In our next session you'll be joined by Fiona from the library and also Chris Williams from the Faculty of Arts and Social Sciences, so I'll see you for that next session very soon.